Yeah, it was a big day for the Cleveland Browns, and we finally now know the future of the team's new quarterback. Certainly some big news happening today. Deshaun Watson is our top story.
Absolutely. He will be out 11 games and has to pay a $5 million fine, which is an increase from the 6-game suspension Sue Robinson originally handed down. We will hear Watson's entire response tonight at 5:30.
Also, we begin at 5 with team coverage on our top story. Neil Fisher was gauging fan reaction. He also spoke with advocates for sexual assault victims. But first, the voice of the Browns, Jim Donovan, is here now, and he joins us live from Berea. Jimmy, good to see you. The league was pushing for a full season. The Watson camp was hoping for the initial 6-game suspension that Sue Robinson handed down. This settlement is pretty much right in the middle. It is 11 games, but there is also, Jimmy, a huge financial component to it that did not exist with Sue Robinson's decision.
That's right, Jay, the $5 million fine. The settlement talks were going on for a long period of time. Some of that information was being leaked out, that maybe the league had backed off the indefinite suspension and come down to 12 games. There was another point in time where it said Watson would accept an 8-game suspension with a fine, but we finally landed today at 11 games and $5 million fine. And so the Browns, Watson, the NFL, the NFLPA, and the football world is finally saying there is clarity and finality to the situation. Upon hearing the announcement of the settlement and the numbers of it, the 11 games, the $5 million fine, Deshaun Watson met with the media for the first time since June. It was back in minicamp. Today, though, he talked again, standing behind what he said immediately after the trade, that he still feels he's done nothing wrong. He did apologize for the chaotic situation and the people it affected, but he still said, I believe I have done nothing wrong. Here he is.
I'm moving on with my career, with my life, and I'm continuing to stand on my innocence. Just because, settlements and things like that happen doesn't mean that a person is guilty for anything. I feel like the person has the opportunity to stand on his innocence and prove that, and we proved that on the legal side, and we're just going to continue to push forward as an individual and as a person.
So the 11-game suspension, what are the rules of that suspension? Here we go. He is eligible, continue to practice with the Browns during training camp and play in preseason games, though we found out later in the afternoon he will not play against Philadelphia this Sunday, and he won't play against the Bears in Game 3 of the final game of the preseason. The actual suspension will kick in on the week of the regular season opener when the Browns play in Carolina on September 11th. Back it up to that Monday. Will not be able to be with the team at that point in time. That's when the suspension begins. He can return back to the Browns facility and be in meetings and training come week 5 of the NFL season. And then he'll be able to practice with the team in late November. And that would lead up to when he would be back on the playing field. Get this, in Houston against his old team, the Houston Texans, on December 4th. That game will be circled by a lot of people. So we continue with our coverage right now. We also had a chance to meet with both Dee and Jimmy Haslam and Browns general manager Andrew Berry upon the announcement of the settlement agreement with the Watson case being finalized. Dee Haslam continued to point out a number of times, you have to remember, Deshaun is going through counseling. Counseling is a process. He's only 26 years old. As for Jimmy Haslam, he said we, meaning the Browns, are all about second chances.
I struggle a little bit. Is he never supposed to play again? Is he never supposed to be part of society? Does he get no chance to rehabilitate himself? And that's what we're going to do, okay? And you could say, well, that's because he's a star quarterback. Well, of course. But if he was Joe Smith, he wouldn't be on the headlines every day. So we think people deserve a second chance. We gave Kareem Hunt a second chance, okay? And that's worked out pretty well, okay? We're hoping this will work out, and we have strong belief it will.
From the NFL and right to the top, the Commissioner Roger Goodell. Remember, he wanted a year-long indefinite suspension, and this is what he got. His comments. This settlement requires compliance with a professional evaluation and treatment plan, a significant fine, and a more substantial suspension by some 5 games. We are grateful to Judge Robinson and Peter Harvey for their efforts in addressing these matters, which laid the foundation for reaching this conclusion. Now, remember this. The Browns as a team, the coaching staff as a staff, they've had to handle this. They've really been the ones speaking because Watson was not meeting with the media. The Haslams were not meeting with the media. Andrew Berry, the same story, until there was a final ruling in the case. And I thought, really, last week and certainly last Friday, you could see that the Browns were getting worn down with this. Today, I talked with their veteran middle linebacker, Anthony Walker, and I asked him about the quarterback situation and the question marks surrounding Watson and when he'll be able to come back and play. Is it a big problem?
Honestly, I don't think it mattered who our quarterback was or is going to be. We want to play dominant defense no matter what. So whether that, no matter who's that quarterback, we have to be a dominant defense. We want to be a dominant defense. We want to be a championship defense. And for us to do that, we got to start it off week 1. And we understand that we got to carry that torch the whole year, no matter who's the quarterback. I really don't mind. I don't care.
Well, the quarterback right now is Jacoby Brissett, and really everybody concerned with the Browns today, players, coaches, owners, general manager, they say they are 100% confident in Jacoby Brissett, and we'll see if that continues along that plane. Now, there's another side to the story, too. What about reaction from Houston, Texas? Remember, before the Browns got Deshaun Watson in that trade on March 18th, this was their situation. He was the Texans quarterback who wanted to be traded. And all of those cases were coming up in Houston, Texas. With reaction from Houston, we call on Jason Bristol from our sister station, KHOU.
The reaction from here in Houston, well, from a football perspective only, most fans are just done with this story. They want it to end because Deshaun Watson is not Houston's problem anymore. He's someone else's, Cleveland's. Having said all that, when you consider that first game back is against the Texans here at NRG Stadium, what Deshaun Watson experienced in Jacksonville, it could be 50 times worse, 100 times worse during that game at NRG. Let's not forget why Deshaun Watson is ultimately gone is because at one point, he quit on this organization. He left this team. He wanted nothing to do with it before all of his legal issues. At that time, there were fans who were sympathetic given the Houston Texans management and the structure. Now, not so much. That's the reaction from Houston. I'm Jason Bristol for KHOU.
All right, Jason, thanks very much. So obviously, come December, and Jay, it is absolutely spellbinding that in all of this, how many games he was going to be suspended, and then when it came up with 11 and you looked at the schedule, okay, where are they for game 12? Houston? I mean, that is just unfathomable that would be the selection and that would be the game, but that will be the case, and it will be interesting to see what the state of everybody will be at that time. What will the record be for the Browns going into that game? Is Deshaun Watson ready to play? What is Houston at that point in the season? And what will be the temperament of that crowd?
It is from the can't make it up file because they opened the season against Carolina, who we now know will start Baker Mayfield at quarterback. And then Deshaun Watson's first game will be back at his old place in Houston. A wild, wild story. Jimmy, terrific job breaking it all down. We're going to hear from you again in the second half hour, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on Deshaun Watson's comments after the settlement was announced. A lot of reaction on social to that, a lot of reaction league-wide and nationwide. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on that. We'll see you again at 5:30.
All right, Jay, thanks.